The rain fell mercilessly over the outskirts of Chicago that October night, the kind of cold, penetrating rain that seems to seep into your bones and remind you that winter is approaching without mercy. Sophia Adams gripped the steering wheel of her old Honda Civic, the windshield wipers struggling against the downpour as she squinted to see the dark road ahead. The GPS indicated she was approaching her last delivery of the night, a mansion in an isolated area she had never been to before. At 26 years old, Sophia's life had become a predictable cycle of exhaustion. She worked 12-hour shifts delivering food through 3 different apps, racing from restaurant to restaurant, door to door, always with the same goal: to pay the medical bills for her younger sister Emma, who had been battling leukemia for 2 years. The treatments were expensive, brutally expensive, and their parents had died in a car accident 5 years ago, leaving Sophia as the sole guardian and provider. That night her body ached from fatigue. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes burned from lack of sleep, and her hands were numb from gripping the steering wheel for so many hours. But she couldn't stop. She never could. Emma depended on her, and that was all that mattered. The mansion finally appeared through the rain, an imposing structure of stone and glass, set back from the road and surrounded by tall iron gates that opened automatically as she approached. Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. Something about that place felt wrong, unwelcoming. The house was illuminated, but there was a strange emptiness in the air, as if even the light couldn't penetrate the darkness that surrounded it. She parked near the main entrance, grabbed the food bag from the passenger seat, and ran through the rain to the covered porch. The house was silent, too silent. She pressed the doorbell and waited, hugging herself against the cold. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. Sophia checked her phone. The order had been prepaid with a generous tip. She was about to leave the bag at the door and go when she heard something that made her freeze in place. A scream. A child's scream, muffled by the rain but unmistakable. Her heart began to pound. She looked around, trying to locate the source of the sound. Another scream, this time clearer, coming from behind the house. Without thinking, Sophia dropped the food bag and ran around the mansion, her sneakers splashing through puddles, her breath coming in short gasps. Behind the house stretched an extensive backyard with perfectly manicured gardens, and at the far end, illuminated by decorative lights, was a large lake. The rain created concentric circles on the dark surface of the water, but in the center, Sophia saw 2 small figures struggling desperately. Children. 2 children were drowning. Terror gripped Sophia's chest, but there was no time to think, no time to call for help. No time to wonder where the adults were or how this had happened. Her body moved on pure instinct. She kicked off her shoes and dove into the icy water without hesitation. The cold was shocking, like thousands of needles piercing her skin simultaneously. The lake was deeper than it appeared, and the rain made it difficult to see. Sophia swam with all her strength toward the children, her arms cutting through the water with desperate determination. She reached the first child, a boy, perhaps 6 years old, his eyes wide with terror as he struggled to stay afloat. She grabbed him firmly and began swimming back to shore, fighting against the weight and her own growing exhaustion. She deposited the boy on the grass, coughing and gasping, and without waiting to see if he was okay, she dove back into the water. The second child, a girl identical to the boy, was sinking. Sophia dove deeper, her lungs burning, her vision blurring, until her hands finally found the small body. She pulled the girl up with the last of her strength and swam back to shore. On the grass, both children were breathing, coughing up water, alive. Sophia collapsed beside them, her whole body trembling from cold and adrenaline, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. She looked at the children, twins with dark hair and delicate features, their eyes filled with tears and fear. In the distance, she heard voices. Adults were finally coming, running from the house, shouting. Sophia knew she should stay, should explain what had happened, but something inside her screamed to leave. She didn't want attention. She didn't want questions. She just wanted to go home, change her wet clothes, and forget this night had ever happened. So she got up, still shaking, and ran back to her car. She didn't look back. She didn't see the security guards rushing to the children or the panic spreading through the mansion. She just drove away, her wet clothes soaking the car seat, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. Sophia Adams had saved 2 lives that night, but she had no idea whose lives they were or what consequences her act of courage would bring. As she drove through the rain-soaked streets of Chicago, heading back to her small apartment where Emma was waiting, Sophia couldn't shake the image of those children from her mind. Their frightened eyes, their small bodies struggling in the water, the terrifying silence before their cries. She had acted without thinking. That was who Sophia was. Someone who couldn't turn away from suffering, even when she barely had enough to sustain herself. It was a quality her mother had always admired, but one that often left Sophia vulnerable in a world that didn't reward kindness. When she finally arrived home, it was past midnight. Emma was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled up to her chin, her pale face peaceful in sleep. Sophia stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching her sister breathe. Emma was all she had left in this world. Everything she did, every sacrifice, every exhausting night, it was all for her. Sophia changed out of her wet clothes, made herself a cup of tea, and sat by the window looking out at the rain-soaked city. Somewhere out there in that isolated mansion, 2 children were safe because of her. Their parents would never know who saved them, and that was fine. Sophia didn't need recognition. She just needed to survive another day. But as she finally drifted off to sleep that night, Sophia had no idea that her life was about to change forever. That the children she saved weren't just any children. That their father was a man whose name was whispered in fear across the city. That by tomorrow morning, her quiet, anonymous life would be shattered. The rain continued to fall over Chicago, washing away the evidence of the night's events. But some things cannot be washed away. Some debts cannot be ignored. And some people, once they enter your life, can never be removed.
Narrator's closing for Chapter 1. What will happen when the mysterious father discovers who saved his children? Will Sophia's act of courage become her greatest blessing or her worst nightmare? Subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for Chapter 2, where the truth begins to reveal itself in ways Sophia could never have imagined.
Sophia woke to a sound she had never heard before in her quiet neighborhood. The deep, rhythmic rumble of multiple powerful engines, growing louder with each passing second. She opened her eyes slowly, disoriented, her body aching from the previous night's ordeal. The digital clock on her nightstand read 7:30 in the morning. She had only slept for a few hours. The engine sounds grew closer, more intense until they seemed to surround her entire apartment building. Sophia sat up, her heart beginning to race with an inexplicable sense of dread. She walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. What she saw made her blood run cold. The entire street was lined with black SUVs, at least 15 of them, maybe more, parked in perfect formation like soldiers at attention. They were sleek, expensive vehicles with tinted windows, the kind you only see in movies or when the president visits town. Men in dark suits stood beside each vehicle, their postures rigid, their eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the overcast morning sky. The neighborhood had gone completely silent. Curtains twitched in windows across the street as neighbors peeked out, terrified. Mrs. Chen, who usually walked her dog at this hour, had frozen on the sidewalk, clutching her small terrier to her chest. Old Mr. Rodriguez, who ran the corner store, had stepped outside and immediately retreated back inside, locking his door. Sophia's hands trembled as she let the curtain fall. What was happening? Had she unknowingly witnessed something she shouldn't have last night? Were these people connected to that mansion? Her mind raced through possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. A knock on her door. Firm, authoritative, impossible to ignore. Sophia glanced at Emma's bedroom door, still closed. Her sister was still sleeping, thank God. She didn't need to be frightened by whatever this was. Sophia took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, and walked to the door. Her hand hesitated on the knob for just a moment before she opened it. Standing in the narrow hallway outside her apartment were 2 men in impeccable suits, their expressions neutral, but their presence undeniably intimidating. Behind them, at the top of the stairs, she could see more men, forming a human corridor that led down to the street. "Miss Sophia Adams?" one of them asked, his voice professional but carrying an undertone that suggested this wasn't really a question. "Yes," Sophia managed to say, her voice smaller than she intended. "What's going on? What do you want?" "You need to come with us, ma'am," the man said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Someone wishes to speak with you." "Who? Why?" "I haven't done anything wrong," Sophia protested, even as fear constricted her throat. The man's expression didn't change. "You're not in trouble, Miss Adams. But this isn't optional. Please come downstairs." Sophia's mind raced. She thought about refusing. about closing the door and calling the police. But something told her that wouldn't help. These weren't ordinary men. This wasn't an ordinary situation. And the police, somehow she had the feeling they wouldn't intervene even if she called. "Let me check on my sister first," Sophia said, her voice firmer now. "She's sick. She can't be alone." The man nodded once. "You have 2 minutes." Sophia closed the door and rushed to Emma's room. Her sister was still sleeping, her breathing steady, peaceful. Sophia scribbled a quick note and left it on the nightstand. "Went to handle something. Back soon. Take your medicine. Love you." She prayed it was true, that she would be back soon. When she stepped out of her apartment, the men escorted her downstairs, their formation so precise it felt choreographed. The morning air was cold, and Sophia realized she was still in her pajama pants and an old sweatshirt. She wrapped her arms around herself as they walked toward the center of the street, and then she saw him. Standing beside the middle SUV was a man unlike anyone Sophia had ever encountered. He was tall, perhaps in his mid-30s, with dark hair perfectly styled and a face that seemed carved from marble, all sharp angles and intense features. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sophia earned in 6 months, and everything about him radiated power and control. But it was his eyes that truly captivated her. Dark, penetrating eyes that seemed to see through every defense, every pretense. Beside him stood the 2 children from last night, the twins. In the daylight, cleaned up and dressed in expensive clothes, they looked like angels. But their eyes held the same fear Sophia had seen in the water, and when they saw her, their faces lit up with recognition and something that looked like relief. The man's gaze locked onto Sophia with an intensity that made her want to step backward, but she held her ground even as her heart hammered in her chest. He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable, as if he were making calculations she couldn't begin to understand. Finally, he moved toward her with the grace of a predator, each step measured and deliberate. When he stopped in front of her, Sophia had to tilt her head back slightly to meet his eyes. He was close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, subtle, with notes of cedar and something darker. "Sophia Adams," he said, his voice deep and commanding, with the faintest trace of an accent she couldn't quite place. "Do you know who I am?" Sophia shook her head, not trusting her voice. "My name is Dante Morelli," he said, and even though Sophia didn't recognize the name, something about the way he said it, and the way his men straightened slightly when he spoke it, told her everything she needed to know. This was someone powerful, someone dangerous, someone who was not accustomed to being told no. "Last night," Dante continued, his eyes never leaving hers, "you saved my children, Alessandro and Isabella. They were playing unsupervised near the lake. A failure of security that has been addressed. You risked your life to save theirs without knowing who they were, without expecting anything in return. You disappeared before anyone could thank you, or even get your name." He paused, and Sophia saw something shift in his expression. A crack in the marble, a flash of genuine emotion. "It took my people all night to find you," he said. "The delivery app, the GPS records from your car, security footage. We had to piece together who you were and where you lived, because I needed to find you, Sophia. I needed to see with my own eyes the woman who saved my children when everyone else failed." Sophia found her voice at last. I just did what anyone would do. They needed help. I couldn't just leave them." Something that might have been a smile tugged at the corner of Dante's mouth. "Most people would have called for help and waited. Most people would have been afraid to get involved. You didn't hesitate. You acted. That says something about who you are." He turned slightly, and the twins immediately came forward. Alessandro and Isabella looked at Sophia with wide, grateful eyes. Isabella reached out and took Sophia's hand, her small fingers warm and trusting. "They recognized you immediately this morning," Dante said, his voice softer now. Isabella woke up crying, saying she wanted to see the angel who saved them. "Alessandro insisted we find you. My children chose you, Sophia Adams." Dante stepped even closer, and Sophia could feel the weight of his presence, the intensity of his focus on her. "And so do I," he said, his voice low but clear enough for everyone on the street to hear. "From today on, you belong to my family, and I protect what is mine." The words hung in the air like a proclamation, a decree that could not be challenged. Sophia's mind reeled. What did that mean? What was he saying? She looked around at the men in suits, at the neighbors watching from their windows, at the twins holding her hand, at this powerful, dangerous man who had just claimed her as his. "I don't understand," Sophia whispered. "What does that mean? I have a sister, I have a life, I can't just—" "Your sister will have the best medical care available," Dante interrupted, his tone matter-of-fact. "The best doctors, the best treatment. Money is no longer something you need to worry about. Neither is safety or security or any of the struggles you've been facing alone." He reached out and with surprising gentleness lifted her chin so she had no choice but to look directly at him. "You saved what matters most to me in this world," he said quietly. "That creates a debt I can never truly repay, but I can ensure you never have to struggle again. You can refuse, Sophia. You can walk back into your apartment and I'll leave. But your sister will still get the best care I can provide, and you'll still have my protection whether you want it or not." Sophia's mind spun. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen in real life. But the grip of the children's hands, the weight of Dante's gaze, the cold morning air on her skin, it was all too real. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Dante's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "I want you to let me do what I failed to do last night. Keep my children safe. They trust you. They feel safe with you. And in my world, trust is the rarest commodity of all." Before Sophia could respond, Isabella tugged on her hand. The little girl looked up at her with eyes that held both innocence and profound need. Alessandro moved closer to her other side, as if seeking shelter in her presence. In that moment, Sophia understood what Dante was really saying. He wasn't just offering her protection or money. He was offering her a place in his family, in his life, because his children had chosen her. And in his world, apparently, that choice mattered more than anything else. Sophia looked at the children, then at Dante, then at the street full of intimidating vehicles and dangerous-looking men. Her ordinary life as a delivery woman who barely made ends meet was over. She could feel it ending, like a door closing behind her that could never be reopened. The question was, what would be on the other side of the door that was opening in front of her? Narrator's closing for Chapter 2. Sophia's quiet life has been shattered forever. She now stands at a crossroads: accept Dante Morelli's protection and enter a world of power and danger, or try to return to the life she knew, knowing it will never be the same. What choice will she make? And what secrets does Dante's world hold? Don't miss Chapter 3, where Sophia steps into a realm beyond her imagination. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories. Sophia stood in the palatial bedroom that had been prepared for her, unable to process the transformation her life had undergone in just 48 hours. The room was larger than her entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked manicured gardens and, in the distance, the lake where she had saved Alessandro and Isabella. The furniture was elegant and expensive, the kind she had only seen in magazines. A walk-in closet had been filled with clothes in her exact size, all designer brands she couldn't even pronounce. But what truly amazed Sophia was the medical wing that Dante had arranged for Emma. Her sister now occupied a suite of rooms equipped with the latest medical technology, attended by a team of specialists who had been flown in from the country's best hospitals. When Sophia had told Emma what had happened, her sister's first reaction had been disbelief, followed by tears of gratitude. For the first time in 2 years, Emma wasn't in pain. The new treatments were already making a difference. Sophia walked to the window and pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Everything felt surreal, like she had stepped into someone else's life. 3 days ago, she had been worrying about making enough deliveries to pay this month's bills. Now she lived in a mansion that looked like something out of a movie, with a man who commanded fear and respect from everyone around him. Dante Morelli. Even his name carried weight. In the past 2 days, Sophia had learned more about him than she ever wanted to know. He was the head of one of Chicago's most powerful crime families, not through violence or brutality as the movies might suggest, but through intelligence, strategic thinking, and an iron will. He controlled legitimate businesses alongside less legitimate ones, moving through both worlds with equal ease. Politicians, businessmen, and even law enforcement treated him with cautious respect. And now, Sophia was under his protection, part of his family, whether she wanted it or not. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Maria, an older woman who served as the household manager, entered with a warm smile. She had been kind to Sophia from the beginning, sensing her discomfort and fear. "Mr. Morelli has requested your presence for dinner, Miss Sophia. The children are very excited. They've been asking about you all day." Sophia's heart softened at the mention of Alessandro and Isabella. Those two beautiful, innocent children had become her anchor in this strange, new world. They followed her everywhere when they could, holding her hands, telling her stories, showing her their toys. They had nightmares about the lake, and only Sophia's presence seemed to calm them. She had found herself caring for them naturally, instinctively, as if they had always been part of her life. "Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes, Sophia said. Maria nodded and left, and Sophia took a moment to compose herself. She changed into one of the simple but elegant dresses that had appeared in her closet, a soft navy blue that made her dark hair stand out. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. The exhausted delivery woman with dark circles under her eyes had been replaced by someone who looked rested, healthy, almost beautiful. When she made her way downstairs to the dining room, she found Dante already seated at the head of a long mahogany table. The children jumped up when they saw her, running to embrace her legs with enthusiastic shouts. Sophia couldn't help but smile, kneeling down to hug them properly. "We missed you," Isabella exclaimed, her little arms tight around Sophia's neck. "Where were you?" "I was just upstairs, sweetie," Sophia said, smoothing the girl's dark hair. "I'm here now." Alessandro took her hand and pulled her toward the table. "Sit next to me." "Papa." Sophia sits next to me. Dante watched this interaction with an unreadable expression, but Sophia caught something in his eyes. Perhaps approval, perhaps something more complex. He gestured to the chair beside him, across from where the children would sit. "Actually, Sophia will sit here," he said, his tone gentle but leaving no room for argument. Dinner was an elaborate affair, with courses Sophia couldn't even identify, all prepared by a chef who apparently worked exclusively for the family. But what struck Sophia most was the dynamic at the table. Despite his fearsome reputation, Dante was attentive and patient with his children. He listened to their stories, answered their questions, and occasionally smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed his severe features into something almost boyish. "Miss Sophia," Alessandro said suddenly, his face serious, "are you going to stay with us forever?" The question hung in the air. Sophia glanced at Dante, unsure how to respond. He met her gaze steadily, waiting to see what she would say. "I'm here now," Sophia said carefully, "and I'm not going anywhere while you need me." "But you'll need us too, right?" Isabella asked, her child's logic cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "Papa says family needs each other. You're our family now." Sophia felt her throat tighten with emotion. These children who had suffered their own trauma, who had lost their mother 2 years ago in circumstances Dante hadn't yet explained, were opening their hearts to her with such trust and innocence. How could she possibly walk away from them? After dinner, Dante asked Sophia to join him in his study. It was a masculine room, lined with books and dominated by a massive desk. He poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to her before settling into one of the leather chairs by the fireplace. Sophia sat across from him, feeling the weight of his attention. "You're uncomfortable here," Dante observed. "It wasn't a question. I'm adjusting," Sophia said honestly. "This isn't my world, Mr. Morelli." "Dante," he corrected, "and it is your world now, whether you chose it or not. I understand this is difficult, Sophia. You saved my children's lives, and I've essentially upended yours in return. That must seem profoundly unfair." Sophia took a sip of wine, gathering her courage. "Why are you doing this? I mean, I understand gratitude, but this seems extreme." Dante was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more vulnerable than she had heard it before. 2 years ago, I lost my wife," he said. "Elena. She was killed in a car accident. At least that's what the police report said. But in my world, accidents are rarely just accidents. I've spent 2 years building walls around my children, keeping them safe, controlling every aspect of their environment. And despite all of that, despite all my power and resources, I failed them. They nearly died because of a moment of negligence." He turned to look at Sophia, and she saw genuine pain in his eyes. "You, a woman with nothing, risked everything to save them when all my money and power were useless. You showed me that safety doesn't come from control alone. It comes from people who care, who act without thinking of consequences or rewards. My children sense that in you. They've been different since that night, calmer, happier. They laugh more. They sleep better when you're near. They're wonderful children, Sophia said softly. They need a mother, Dante said bluntly. I can give them everything except that. And I know that I'm asking too much. We barely know each other. You have your own life, your own dreams. But I'm asking you to consider staying. Not as an employee, not out of obligation, but as part of this family. To help me raise Alessandro and Isabella. To help them heal. Sophia's heart raced. Was he proposing? No, it wasn't that simple. He was proposing something more complex. A partnership, a shared purpose. I need time, Sophia whispered. This is all so overwhelming. Take the time you need, Dante said. But know this, you're safe here. Your sister is safe here. Whatever you decide, that doesn't change. I protect what's mine, and you became mine the moment you pulled my children from that water. The possessiveness in his words should have frightened Sophia, but instead she felt something else. A strange sense of security, of being valued, of mattering to someone in a way she hadn't experienced since her parents died. Later that night, as Sophia lay in her luxurious bed, unable to sleep, she heard a soft knock on her door. When she opened it, she found Alessandro and Isabella standing there in their pajamas, holding hands. We had a bad dream, Isabella said, her voice small, about the water. Without thinking, Sophia opened her door wider. Come here, both of you. The children climbed into her bed, curling up on either side of her. She wrapped her arms around them and they immediately relaxed, their breathing slowing. Within minutes, they were asleep, safe and secure. Sophia looked at their peaceful faces and felt something shift inside her. She had spent so long taking care of Emma, being strong for her sister, that she had forgotten what it felt like to be needed in this way, completely, innocently, by children who just wanted to feel safe. Maybe, she thought, this was where she was supposed to be. Maybe saving those children wasn't just about that one moment in the lake. Maybe it was about this, about healing, about family, about finding purpose in the most unexpected place. As she drifted off to sleep with the children in her arms, Sophia didn't hear the door crack open slightly, or see Dante standing there, watching the three of them. His expression was complex. Gratitude, relief, and something deeper that he himself might not have been ready to name. He stood there for a long time before finally, quietly, closing the door and walking away, leaving them to sleep in peace. Narrator's closing for Chapter 3. Sophia is beginning to find her place in this new world, connected to the children in ways that go beyond duty or gratitude. But what happens when the outside world discovers her presence in Dante's life? And what secrets about Elena's death still lurk in the shadows? Everything will be revealed in the final chapter. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the stunning conclusion to this story. 3 months had passed since that rainy night that changed everything. Sophia stood in the mansion's kitchen on a Saturday morning, helping Alessandro and Isabella make pancakes, a weekend ritual they had established together. Flour dusted Isabella's nose, and Alessandro was carefully pouring batter onto the griddle with intense concentration. Their laughter filled the kitchen, a sound that had become the soundtrack of Sophia's new life. Emma sat at the kitchen island, looking healthier than she had in years. The treatments were working. Her color had returned. Her energy was back, and the doctors were cautiously optimistic about her remission. She watched her sister with the children, smiling at how natural Sophia looked in this role. You know, Emma said, I never thought I'd see you like this. You look happy, Soph. Sophia glanced at her sister, surprised by the observation. I am, she admitted. Is that strange, given everything? It's not strange at all, Emma replied. You've always needed people to take care of. That's who you are. And these kids need you just as much as you need them. It was true. Over the past 3 months, Sophia had fallen deeply, irrevocably in love with Alessandro and Isabella. They weren't just children she was caring for. They were her children now in every way that mattered except biology. She knew their favorite bedtime stories, their fears, their dreams. She knew that Alessandro liked his sandwiches cut diagonally, and Isabella was afraid of thunderstorms. She knew how to make them laugh and how to comfort them when they were sad. And Dante? Dante had become something more complex, more profound than she had expected. He wasn't the cold, dangerous man she had first encountered. He was a father who read to his children every night, a leader who carried impossible burdens with quiet dignity, and a man who had begun to look at Sophia with something beyond gratitude in his eyes. They had grown close over these months, Not romantically, but with a deep, mutual respect and understanding. He had told her about Elena, about their complicated marriage, about the investigation into her death that had gone nowhere. She had told him about her parents, about the struggles of raising Emma alone, about the fears that kept her awake at night. They had become partners in the truest sense, united by their shared love for the children. The sound of the front door opening interrupted Sophia's thoughts. Dante's voice echoed through the house. "Sophia, can you come to my office?" Something in his tone made Sophia's heart skip. She looked at Emma, who nodded. "I've got the pancake situation under control. Go." Sophia found Dante in his study, standing by the window with his back to her. His posture was tense, his shoulders rigid. Two men in suits stood nearby, his most trusted advisors. "What's wrong?" Sophia asked immediately. Dante turned and she saw an expression she had never seen on his face before. Genuine fear. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Something I should have told you months ago." He dismissed the other men with a gesture, and once they were alone, he moved closer to Sophia. "Elena's death wasn't an accident," he said quietly. "I've known that from the beginning. It was a message from a rival family, a warning. I've been working for 2 years to dismantle their organization to ensure they could never threaten my children again." Sophia's blood ran cold. "And have you succeeded?" "Yes," Dante said. "But there's been a complication. They know about you. They know the children trust you, that you're important to this family, and they've made threats." "What kind of threats?" Sophia asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "The kind that mean you're in danger," Dante said bluntly. "You and Emma both. I've increased security, of course. No one can touch you here. But I need you to understand the world you've entered. It's not just wealth and privilege, it's danger. It's living with the knowledge that people might want to hurt you to get to me." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. She should have been terrified. She should have wanted to pack up Emma and run as far away as possible. But instead she felt something else, a fierce, protective determination. "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. Dante's eyes widened slightly. "Sophia, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she interrupted. "Those children have already lost one mother. They're not losing another. I don't care about the danger. I care about them, and I care about—" She hesitated, then continued. "I care about this family. All of it." Something shifted in Dante's expression. He took a step closer to her, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "You would stay? Knowing what it means? Knowing you'd be putting yourself at risk?" "I already made that choice the night I jumped into that lake," Sophia said. "I didn't know who they were then, and it didn't matter. All that mattered was that they needed help. They still need help, Dante. They need stability, love, normalcy. I can give them that, and I won't let anyone take it away from them. Or from me." Dante reached out and cupped her face gently in his hands. It was the first time he had touched her with such intimacy. "You are extraordinary," he said quietly. "From the very beginning I knew there was something different about you. Something rare. My children didn't just choose you randomly. They sensed what I'm only now beginning to fully understand." "What's that?" Sophia whispered. "That you belong here," he said. "Not because I decided it, not because circumstances forced it, but because this is where you were always meant to be. With them, with—" He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "With us." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. "I was so lost before that night," she admitted. "I was working myself to death, just surviving, never actually living. But now I wake up every morning knowing I have a purpose, I have a family, I have a home." Dante finished for her. "Yes," she breathed. "A home." Dante leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers, a gesture of intimacy and trust that spoke more than words ever could. They stood like that for a long moment, breathing together, understanding that something fundamental had shifted between them. "I will protect you," Dante said fiercely. "I will protect all of you. No one will hurt this family. I swear it." Sophia believed him. She had seen the lengths he would go to for his children, the power he wielded, the fear he commanded. But she also knew that protection wasn't enough. A family needed more than security. It needed love, connection, the daily small moments that built a life together. "Come on," she said, taking his hand. "The kids are making pancakes. You should be there." Dante allowed himself to be led back to the kitchen, where Alessandro and Isabella immediately demanded his attention, showing off their culinary creations. Emma gave Sophia a knowing look, understanding without words that something significant had just happened. As they all sat together eating slightly burnt pancakes and laughing at the children's jokes, Sophia felt a profound sense of rightness. This eclectic, unconventional family, a mafia boss, his traumatized children, a recovering woman, and a former delivery woman who had stumbled into their lives, somehow worked. They balanced each other, supported each other, loved each other. Over the following weeks, Sophia's role in the family became even more defined. She wasn't just a caregiver or a protector. She was a mother to Alessandro and Isabella, a sister to Emma, and something more to Dante. They never defined it with labels. They didn't need to. The connection between them grew naturally, built on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and a deepening affection that surprised them both. The threats that Dante had warned her about never materialized. His rivals had been dealt with, his family secured. But even if danger had come, Sophia knew she would have faced it head-on, because that's what families do. They protect each other. They stand together against whatever comes. One evening, as Sophia was tucking Alessandro and Isabella into bed, Isabella grabbed her hand and looked up at her with serious eyes. "Miss Sophia, are you our mama now?" Sophia felt her heart clench. She looked at Alessandro, who was watching her with equal intensity, waiting for her answer. Then she felt Dante's presence in the doorway. He had been listening, she realized, wanting to hear her answer as much as the children did. Sophia brushed Isabella's hair back gently. "If you want me to be," she said softly. "Would you like that?" Both children nodded vigorously. "Yes," Alessandro exclaimed. "We want you to be our mama, forever and ever." "Then yes," Sophia said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm your mama, forever and ever." The children threw their arms around her, and Sophia held them close, feeling as if her heart might burst from the fullness of it. When she finally tucked them in and kissed their foreheads, she turned to find Dante still standing in the doorway, watching her with an expression of such profound emotion that it took her breath away. They walked down the hallway together in silence, but when they reached Sophia's door, Dante took her hand. "Thank you," he said simply, "for choosing us, for loving them, for being exactly who they needed." "They're easy to love," Sophia replied. "All of you are." Dante smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "My children chose you first," he said, "but I choose you too, Sophia. Every day, I choose you." And in that moment, Sophia understood that she had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Not just a family, not just a home, but a place where she truly belonged, where her courage, her compassion, her willingness to leap without looking had led her to exactly where she was meant to be. The delivery woman who had once struggled to make ends meet was gone. In her place was Sophia Morelli, mother, protector, beloved member of a family that would do anything for each other. And as she looked at Dante, seeing the future unfolding in his eyes, she knew that the greatest adventure was just beginning. Because sometimes the most powerful choice isn't the one we make consciously. It's the instinctive leap into dark water, not knowing what we'll find, but trusting that it's where we need to be. Sophia had taken that leap 3 months ago, and she would take it again 1,000 times over because it had led her home. And so Sophia Adams found her destiny in the most unexpected way, not through careful planning or seeking, but through a single moment of courage that changed everything. She became the mother that Alessandro and Isabella needed, the partner that Dante had been searching for, and most importantly, she found the family and home she had been missing her entire life. Sometimes, the greatest blessings come disguised as rainy nights and impossible choices. Sometimes saving others is how we save ourselves. Thank you for joining us on Sophia's incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell and share it with someone who needs to hear a story about courage, family, and unexpected love. We have many more amazing stories waiting for you. Until next time, remember, one act of kindness can change everything.